Hello, welcome to another episode of the DRH Show. As usual, in each episode, I'll be talking to interesting people within psychology, mental health, and well-being. Today, I'm joined by the founder of Minds Anonymous, Louisa Wizzi Magnussen. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, Wizzy. So let's start off with you telling us your backstory, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Well, my career is quite varied. I started a business at the age of about 17, and that was in sort of a documentary business, essentially. We went out and we shot festivals, made documentaries about them. We worked with artists like Natalie Ross. We sold some footage to Channel 4. And that was really the beginning of me kind of doing my own thing. Then I went off to university at age 18, 19 and started another business, which was a media company, which encompassed events, video, photography and copywriting and a little bit of web design, which kind of that business morphed into much more web design, copywriting heavy. But in and out of kind of doing my own entrepreneurial stuff, I've been a journalist, I've been a local journalist, worked for a few nationals, just on a sort of freelance basis. I was hired out of uni by a job that I did work experience with by a local magazine, which was great. That was my first that was me dipping my toes into journalism for the first time, really. And from then on, I've worked in PR, I've worked in marketing, copywriting, journalism, obviously, and a lot of radio work as well. I've had my own radio show since about 2013. Yeah, so that's a bit about my background. And then I suppose with mindsanonymous.com, it really started when I got put on furlough from a job in diversity and inclusion. I was communications manager there and got put on furlough and wondered what to do with my time. I thought, this is sad. It affected me quite badly because I loved the job, and that later led to, sadly, redundancy, which I kind of knew was going to happen. It was sort of, I had a feeling. And then with that time, I came up with Minds Anonymous and launched it in sort of 24 hours after the idea generated. And it just flooded out of me. I think it's something that's been coming for a long time. I've always wanted to do something in mental health, something to help people that suffer with mental health and increase understanding and abolish stigma. And that's really what mindsanonymous.com is all about.
It really sounds like an excellent platform. And one thing that I've noticed when I went to the website of Minds Anonymous is that there's thing what you call safe space. Now, for those who are working within the mental health community, they're probably familiar about what safe space entails. But could you just refresh to us what exactly is safe space and what is it for?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it's a safe space is because it's anonymous. So all of the authors' identity is protected at all times. So the way it's a safe space is that you can be open for potentially the first time about your sort of traumatic experiences, your sometimes embarrassing experience, because there's a lot of shame attached to mental health problems. Now, the whole purpose of providing this platform is that there is no judgment in this space. There's no comments allowed on the website. Nobody has communication with any of the other writers. So it's anything but a kind of discussion forum. It's just a space where people can be honest, open and publish how they really feel without any stigma attached to it. So I don't know if that answers your question, does it?
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, Wizzy, that there's really a strong parallel with what we do, because I'm the founder of PsychReg, and essentially what I do is I publish a range of pieces on mental health and well-being, and some of it is actually about mental health stories. So it's pretty much similar to what you're doing. But I'm just I'm interested, what really prompted you to launch it, and how are you funded?
Well, it was prompted by I was interviewed when I worked at the D&I company, Diversity and Inclusion Company, and they interviewed me about bipolar. And I found the exercise of answering these questions about my own condition and my own struggles incredibly therapeutic and quite liberating. But I was absolutely terrified of publishing it under my name. It was going out on LinkedIn in business areas. It was a business to business sort of, and business to consumer, but mostly B2B company. And I thought, I'm never going to be hired again. Once they know I have bipolar, I'm going to be stigmatized for it. So Minds Anonymous came to me because I thought, how can I encourage the kind of therapeutic exercise of writing about your experiences, but take away that fear of being stigmatized and being penalized for having a mental health condition. And that's where I thought of the word anonymous, and I thought of Minds, and I thought of Minds Anonymous. And then I literally registered the domain and launched. And again, it just flooded out because I think it's something that's been on my mind for quite a long time now. I'm a kind of writer by trade, so I would say write about things, it helps. But I really believe in writing as a form of therapy, and Minds Anonymous aims to provide that platform as well as increase understanding of these mental health conditions that are talked about for anyone, for anyone and everyone to gain a better understanding and reduce stigma.
What you said, and the notion of allowing people to write about their mental health, about their experiences, and it kind of liberates them, that really strongly resonates with me, because I'm, as a blogger and as a digital content creator, I really believe that stories are very powerful narrative. Just like what you've said, it allows to deconstruct the stigma. But what do you think is the reason that we still have a stigma attached to mental health, although we're making significant progress, but we can't really deny that there is still stigma that we can see? What's the reason for that?
There's a lack of understanding. I mean, neuroscientists are working on this all the time. Where is the mind? What is the mind? How does the mind's chemicals and the chemicals the mind's chemicals and the chemicals, you know what I mean? The chemicals in the brain, how do they interact with the kind of matter of the brain? Where are feelings? Where are emotions? We still know so little about the mind. And it used to be, horrendous. If you had a mental health condition, you'd be locked up in asylum. Now, we're far from those days, and the stigma is reducing, but I think it's because of a lack of understanding. There is a fear, particularly relating to some of the more serious conditions, such as schizophrenia. I mean, all conditions are serious, but schizophrenia can really cause that psychosis reaction, and people are scared of it. And I don't think the media helps. The media portrays schizophrenics and people with borderline personality disorder as criminals, as dangerous, as to be feared. And I think that's just hugely damaging to society as a whole. We need to reduce the stigma by changing the way we portray these conditions in fiction and in the media.
And you're really doing an important work for initiating this project on Minds Anonymous, and I really have to commend you for that, because like what you said, there's really an important work that needs to be done in relation to mental health, in relation to well-being. Now, of course, you've collected a number of stories relating to mental health. Without breaking the anonymity, could you just share to us some of the most remarkable stories that you've come across, again, without naming names or without naming places?
Of course. I mean, to be honest, that's really difficult because they're all so powerful and they're all so different. They tackle, suicide of a family member is tackled, as well as suicidal thoughts from an individual. That's tackled. Psychosis, the reality of psychosis, the reality of having hallucinations. Somebody wrote a letter, "I forgive me," after having a bit of an episode. This particular person reached out and was embarrassed and felt ashamed, and later on forgave themselves for having that reaction in a letter that they published on Minds Anonymous. And then the feedback was that, "I'm so glad I put that out and got it off my chest." So, I mean, picking one or two stories is really hard. I mean, the one we have a couple of regular writers now as well. And what I'd quite like to do in the future is create pseudonyms for each writer, so people can use it as a more regular form of therapy, and so that others can follow particular writers without knowing who they are. Obviously, it would all be, there'd be, you know, we're thinking of a shape and a colour and making profile pictures out of those, and to maintain anonymity.
Now, of course, Wizzi, because of the important work that you've done, you've been receiving a lot of support from charities, from mental health organizations. Could you talk us more about this?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the most exciting thing for me was when the Richmond Fellowship agreed to have a page on our supporting partners site, because they're the second biggest mental health charity in the country, just next to Mind, and to have their support and to have them say, yes, we'd like to join you and help you and show our support by coming on your website. That was really, it was really humbling. I just thought, wow, that something's happening here. We've got something here. Our other partners is she's not actually retired, but a very long-standing counsellor who's written a couple of supporting articles for us. It's very exciting to be working with her, and she's on the site. So if people need direct communication with a counsellor, we do have a counsellor on board. She's actually quite booked up, but she also has a circle, a network of approved counsellors that she can go to if people do need that support. We've got a wellbeing coach called Tracy from Way to Wellbeing, who goes in and trains organisations on how to be inclusive of mental health, and the early intervention in psychosis team, which was really exciting because I've never been Twitter mad, but I put a tweet out with one of the articles, The Reality of Psychosis, and that led to a partnership with the early intervention in psychosis team as well. So we've got some big charities, and then My Cognition is another big one, which is a mental health app, which is a fantastic app for managing mental health, and we're actually offering free access to their premium app for all authors. So I think most of our authors have taken us up on it and are using that app to help manage their mental health, which is really exciting. So yeah, the support's been just humbling, really.
Well, when you say My Cognition, is that with Kieran Sparrowhawk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually also interviewed him here, and yeah, you're right. It's a wonderful app, and I'm really glad that you've kind of connected to, because you have a similar course when it comes to mental health. Now, of course, Wizzi, we have to be timely and relevant. I'm not saying that, there's a time period when it comes to mental health, but of course now with the pandemic, mental health discussions is even more, pressing. Just like for me, because I run a mental health website, and I've seen a surge of traffic during the lockdown. So would you say that this time of pandemic, your platform is even more relevant? And have you actually seen, an increase in contribution to your platform, Mind Anonymous, during the pandemic?
Well, it started after the pandemic, so I didn't publish the website until the end of September, and but we've had nearly 4,000 views now since then, and that was only a soft launch, and then of course we hard launched about 2 weeks ago, and we got another couple of thousand in, so a couple of thousand in the first couple of months, then another 1,000 in the following couple of weeks. And I think it is, one of our supporters said, this is the perfect time for it because so many people are struggling, and it's not even just those who are facing redundancy and being on furlough and having to take care of kids while working at home. It's not just those people whose lives have carried on and they haven't lost their jobs are also struggling because of the isolation, because you can't see humans. It's so unnatural. We're told we can't be more than 2 meters from each other. We have to be more than 2 meters from each other, and it's so unnatural. We're tactile as a species. We like human interaction. We're very sociable creatures, most of us, and it's just topsy-turvy, the world we're living in at the moment, and it's very damaging to mental health, I think. And one of the interesting things is I think people are experiencing high levels of anxiety that perhaps haven't before. I've heard people describe what to me is a panic attack, because I'm used to panic attacks, and they've said, I thought I was having a heart attack. That's how powerful anxiety can be. And I think it's actually waking people up to how serious this stuff is and how much we all experience it, and how mental health is really a shared human condition. So I think there's almost a positive reaction in that more people are showing more understanding towards mental health conditions because they're also experiencing them because of the pandemic. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
No, that's fine. And exactly, that's true, because as you said, we're really social creatures, so we need some form of interaction, whether it's just publishing your story about mental health, or whether just relating with other people on Zoom, such as this one. Now, you mentioned earlier about social media, although my question is not really related to you promoting your work through social media. But I was just wondering what your thoughts are with, a lot of people say that we have to be kind on social media, but there seems to be a disconnect, with putting this into practice, being kind. So what do you think of that? Being kind, not just, telling that over social media, but also putting it into practice.
I think what we've got to realize is everyone we speak to has the same capacity to feel as us. They can feel angry, they can feel sad, they can feel lost, they can feel just all these different emotions, and every single human on the planet has the capacity to feel those emotions. If you step into a conversation remembering that, I think you will be more compassionate, and therefore you will be more kind. If you just think about how many thoughts go through your own head in 1 minute. The other person is also trying to battle that. They're trying to battle their own experience and their own perception. If you walk into a conversation and think, this is just another me, perhaps your reactions to that person's own emotions will be more kind. I think social media, I get a lot of business through social media, funnily enough, and my business was media. But some of the comments you see on social media are appalling. People calling each other stupid and doing this and doing that. And I just think social media can be very damaging. But it's also a great space to share kindness, to share sort of inspiration towards being more kind and compassionate towards each other. So that's what I think.
So what do you personally do to kind of, protect your mental health when it comes to using social media? Do you just restrict the number of people that you follow, or do you just don't engage with anything, let's say anything political or anything outside of your interests?
I only really use it for business. I don't personal connections. I'm a great WhatsApper and a video caller. I have video calls with my friends. I'm quite a sociable person, so I've been a real user of Zoom and platforms like that during this lockdown, because I've just had to talk to people because I like talking. But social media wise, I very much use it for work, and at the end of the day at 6 o'clock or whatever time I've decided I'm going to finish work that day, phone goes down, Facebook goes off, Twitter goes off, everything gets left behind for another day. And then if I've got a bulk of messages I need to respond to the next day, I'll do it in one block. But I also manage my screen time. I've got a screen time counter on my phone, and I'm appalled at how high my screen time is, and that's not good. So again, the phone goes away in the evenings, and I make sure I have a couple of hours off and try not to get too invested in social media. I never respond to sort of antagonistic posts. I never get involved in the argument. I think, nope, if I want a voice, luckily for me, I have a radio show, so like I can talk about what I want to talk about on there, and I can talk about my frustrations. I have another platform, I don't have to be going at other people just with little comments.
Now, talking about work, Wizzi, do you feel that it's more important than ever for workplaces to support their team who might be struggling with mental health problems, especially during the lockdown?
Absolutely. And I think it's one thing that the company that it's funny for me to say this because I got made redundant, so why would I sort of say this? But they did that very well during the first lockdown. We had daily stand-up meetings, and the question would be asked, how are you feeling today? It wouldn't be, what are you doing today? What are your tasks? What are your goals? What are your KPIs? It would be, how are we all feeling? Does anyone want to stand up and say, I'm frustrated, or I'm irritated, or any number of words that wouldn't be appropriate on a video call? And that really helped. I think it helped keep us connected. And somebody actually reached out to me. Somebody reached out on LinkedIn and wanted my opinion of what the lockdown's done to the workforce and connections within your team. And I said, I actually think it's amplified the connections, because, you know, you've got other people's cats in the background. We met each other's partners. And in a way, it made us more connected. But businesses have got to lead the way of doing that. That won't happen naturally. We need to have these stand-up meetings where you just say, how are you as a person? And just humanize communications. It's all too hard-nosed and business-like still. And particularly during lockdown, we've got to realize everyone's human.
Now, Wizzi, I really value the kind of contribution that you made for the mental health community. But I just want to play the devil's advocate. So some critics would say that essentially what you're doing would be a form of glamorizing mental health, and you're not the only one to be accused of that. I've also been accused of that because I'm a blogger and also talk a lot about mental health, and obviously. You kind of, feed the narrative that, it's kind of glamorous to have mental health because you'll get some form of attention. So what would you say to those people saying that these platforms such as Mind Anonymous or my platform, SiteBridge, is a vehicle for glamorizing mental health issues?
I'd say if it ends stigma and increases understanding, what's the problem with glamorizing it? I mean, I think, to be honest, that sounds a little bit dismissive. It's not a glamorous subject. All you have to do is read the articles, and you'll realize this is not glamorizing. This is being honest and truthful, and this is big stuff. Like, this is not glamorizing it. The fact that the authors are anonymous means it's not glamorizing it. You can't contact, the authors aren't looking for fame. They're not looking for notoriety. They're not looking to become published, famous book writers. They're looking for a little form of release and for somebody to read something that might make sense to them and might make them feel less alone. So I'm afraid it gets me riled up a little bit that this is about glamorizing mental health, because that's totally missing the point. And even if you think it is glamorizing mental health, well, I say fine, let's glamorize it if that increases understanding and reduces stigma. Really.
Okay, so you just told me that you just started up with Minds Anonymous, but what's your big plans for your platform? Are there any upcoming projects, or do you plan to host events?
Yeah, so obviously events, probably not. Somebody else asked me that on an interview the other day, and I said, well, I suppose we could do a masquerade ball and have all the authors meet, but incognito kind of thing. But I don't think that's what we want to do. I don't want to, the authors want to put it out there and then forget about it. They don't want to be reminded of it. They don't want notoriety for it. They don't want to meet the other authors. It's not an events based project. What we are doing though is developing an app. So this is going to be almost like a pocket therapy pad where you create a pseudonym and you can write in stories for approval straight from your phone. I can approve them straight from my phone. It will create a little profile for you, an anonymous profile, and everything will be done through the app. Now, we need to raise money for that, because at the moment the whole thing's funded by, well, me essentially, and there's rising operational costs. So the app feels like it's quite a long way away at the moment, but it's all designed in my head, and I've been talking to an app developer, and basically we need to raise about £5,000. So so it's a big ask, but it's a big that I'm excited about. So that is the future of Minds Anonymous.
Hopefully anyone who's watching this who feel compelled to help your initiative would kind of help you. Do you have any, like, a fundraising page, or can they donate to your website?
Yes, if you go on Invest My Community /Minds Anonymous, that's our fundraising page. But if you can't get your head around that, then you can just go on mindsanonymous.com. There's a donate button, and if you go through there, it takes you to our crowdfunding page, which has an exact breakdown of what your money goes towards. We're also offering, we've got some limited edition Alexander Chocolate Minds Anonymous branded chocolate bars that we're giving to anyone that donates more than £20. Now, we've only got 50 of these, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the business that we partnered with, Alexander Chocolate, is having to close. So these are really limited edition, the last of Alexander Chocolate products that are going to be on the market. And so any donations of over £20, you get one of those, just as a little incentive. And yeah, so if you just go mindsanonymous.com, click donate, you can go through to the donate page and just donate whatever you feel you possibly can, and it will go towards the operational costs to begin with, and then be put in a pot for app development.
So what I'll do is I'll put those links in the video description box, so for anyone who's interested to get involved with what you're doing, they can help. Now, obviously, you've been a very passionate advocate of mental health. You've been doing some innovative work within the community. I'm just wondering if there's any particular individual or a book which has the greatest influence to your work.
Greatest influence to my work? Stephen Fry is my absolute hero. Always has been, and I think the way he deals with his mental health issues is remarkable, and I love the fact that he's come out about it and he's open about it. And however, even with him, you still get stigmatized. You remember the comments that were made at one of the award ceremonies. I can't remember what the situation was, but there was a comment made that referred to his mental health, and I just thought that's disgraceful. The other one is Anne Cantello, who's the director of Onyx Comms. She's one of our partners and is giving us great support, great help. She's been something of a mentor to me over the years. I've designed her website and I've worked for her in a PR capacity, and she's always sort of, at every stage of my career, she's kind of been there and helped me out. And with this, she's just so supportive. And then obviously, like, my husband and my friends and my mum.
The wings beneath your wings. Now, Wizzi, obviously, because of your line of work, you've come across with a number of misconceptions about mental health. So if you could sort of identify those misconceptions and address those misconceptions.
Misconceptions about mental health. That's a very difficult question to answer when you don't have a psychology degree or a qualification in counselling or anything like that. Now, I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not from a mental health background. I'm very much a person who has suffered with multiple mental health conditions. And so I've really only got my opinions to base that on. But
yeah, so from your lived experience of someone who struggled with mental health issues, what would you say are the misconceptions that you've come across?
Okay, so that sadness is depression is one. Like when, say, for example, somebody suffers a bereavement, they might use the language, oh, I'm so depressed. Now, I don't think that's right. I actually think they're sad and they're grieving, and there's space for that. When it's a condition, it's not situational. I think this is the biggest problem with the way society views it. Like, when I've had mental health conditions, my life can have been going really well, and suddenly I'm suicidal and I'm depressed. And that's the big misconception, is that it's triggered necessarily by life events. It can be triggered by life events, but it can just be your brain not reacting in the right way. And it could be sort of chemical imbalances. It could be that your lifestyle doesn't suit you. It could be any number of things. It could be something you're born with, you know, and it could be like diabetes, like a physical disease. I think the other problem is there is no real difference between physical conditions and mental conditions. We've got to stop separating breaking our leg from breaking our head and being ashamed about one but not the other. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, exactly. I think we still haven't reached that stage where, you know, we're comfortable telling our family that I have an appointment to a GP. But when we tell our family that I have an appointment to a counselor or a psychotherapist, we're still a bit hesitant, you know, to share that aspect of our lives. But like what you've said, we really need to address those stigmas. So we come to a position of, you know, we're more comfortable talking about mental health as much as we are more comfortable talking about physical health. Now, Wizzi, you've done a lot of work, like what I've said, within the community. So what's the big message that you want the public to realize about your work?
That mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. It's not an individual's fault if they become mentally ill. It's also not necessarily forever. I think once someone's labeled someone with a condition, they think, oh, I better be careful of that person, they're not very well. Well, not necessarily true. Look at me now. Like, I'm very well now. I've been well for a long time. It's a daily management routine that I won't go into, but I have to manage my symptoms. But I was at the point where I was sectioned and I was very, very, very unwell. It didn't last forever. So I want people to realize that you can get better, you can get over trauma, you can process these events, you can process what's happened to you, and you can live a happy life. But sometimes we need help, we need support, and if you don't reach out, you don't get that help and that support. So I would encourage you, as a stepping stone towards telling somebody really how you're feeling, is write about it and send it out there and see if it will help somebody else, and that will help you too.
Mm-hmm. That's really a positive message, and from some of my viewers, that they would, remember some of the people that I've talked to. They've also got lived experience of mental health conditions, and because of support and because of medication, they managed to overcome those challenges. Now, Wizzi, how do you relax? What's your de-stressing outlet?
It's all the usuals. I love lavender oil. Lavender oil, yoga, having a bath, going for a walk. I sleep a lot. I have quite a rigid sleep regime because I know that sleep is perhaps the most important thing for me to maintain my good health. If I don't sleep for even one night, my symptoms can come out. So I always make sure I wake up at the same time every day, because that's something my psychiatrist taught me about, was your body clock actually works on when you wake up, not when you go to sleep. So even if you stay up a little bit late watching a film or something, still wake up at the same time the next day and your body clock will stay in line. So really, it's a daily routine of me of relaxation techniques, I'm trying to say. Music also, I use music as a form of therapy, art as a form of therapy. I'm trying to do nice things. I also knit.
Oh, cool. Well, when you mentioned that you actually sleep a lot, I actually envy you, because I sleep only probably about 4 to 6 hours a day. I'm really lucky if I could get like 6 hours of sleep, because I'm very guilty about this. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, on my phone. So for those people like me who are struggling with their sleep, do you have any tips for us?
Well, what you can do is you can get a lockable safe that has a time set on it. So if you're feeling you've got too much screen time, people use them for losing weight. They put chocolate in them and they're only allowed chocolate at the end of the day. And people also use them for mobile phones. And what you can do is lock it away for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, as many hours as you like, or even just 10 minutes. If you feel like you need to put it down, I highly recommend it. It's a great way of reducing your screen time and becoming a bit more self-disciplined. And then after a while, people I know that have used these boxes don't need them anymore. They automatically will not look at their phone for a few hours. So that's just sort of a novelty, daft little tip, but it works.
That's interesting. And we see, what do you think you would be doing if you didn't work within the mental health community, or if you didn't become a broadcaster? What do you think you would be doing?
Well, it's writing. I'm a writer. So, I mean, this is very much at the moment, Minds Anonymous. Obviously, I can't work on it full time because there is no income. There is no money. I would love for one day to be able to give full time work to it. I mean, when I say I don't, I kind of do work on it full time, but I also have a number of other jobs and I work in a number of other capacities. I work for a client doing 3 hours of marketing a week. I do copywriting projects. I do emergency copywriting projects. I design websites. And I'm on the radio. So that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Wizzi, could you just let us know where can we find you on social media, and is there anything else in the pipeline that we've missed? Any projects or any upcoming books?
Absolutely. So it's mindsanonymous.com is the website. Through the website, you can find links to our Twitter page, LinkedIn page, Instagram page, and YouTube account. One little idea I've had recently is potentially reading the stories on YouTube, but I'm not sure about that. That's a very much a little idea that I'm not sure will come to fruition yet. But another way of getting the stories out there and making them more interactive. And I might be doing a voiceover of a children's book at some point as well, which would be quite exciting. But for Minds Anonymous, really, it's trying to get more visitors, more stories, and hopefully a little bit of funding at some point so that we can develop this app and develop this kind of therapy-based app, basically.
You know what, Louisa, when you mentioned something about, reading out the story, I'm actually doing that on my platform. What I do is I invite the writers to read out the pieces that they've written. And I think it's not just making it more engaging, because there are some people who've got reading difficulties and they find it difficult to read long articles, but listening to it, that's more kind of their idea of engaging into an article. So go for it. I think that's really a good idea if you read out the stories. But anyway, Louisa Wizzi Magnussen, it's a pleasure having you here on the DRH show, and I look forward to hearing more about your work on Minds Anonymous. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to talk to you today.